Which way? There we go. Right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Austin Shoecraft. I'm here to talk to you today about Angular 2. So I'm sure many of you have heard of it, but probably have no idea what's really going on. You've probably heard it's going to ruin your life, take everything you know and love about Angular and just get rid of it. We all know that Joe hates this guy. But there's actually a lot of powerful things it can do. We've learned that it uses TypeScript, uses ES6 extensively, and it's made to be a more modern alternative to Angular. So first off, we're going to start with is what we all know and love, and that's directives. Now, directives are actually two things. They're components and they're directives. So components are going to be your workhorse. That's where you're going to do a lot of different things in, and that's where you get embedded views in. Now, directives will allow you to add additional behaviors that can be added on to your components. So let's take a look at a component. And that doesn't look like anything we've seen before. Now, we've got some new syntax, and that's annotations that actually got added into TypeScript because Angular was doing this. So that we do this at component, and that tells us that, hey, this is going to be a component. Angular knows it's going to be a component. We say selector myapp, and that's the tag that gets embedded into your HTML. Now, no more camel case that gets converted. You write what you write, and that's what it's going to be. But you have to do it that way, otherwise it'll break. And now we have this @view. Now, this is the same view we're always used to. We can do template or template URL. Now, why is view now a different thing, its own annotation? Now, that's because we can now have really embedded multiple different templates for when you want mobile or when you want tablet or if you want to put it on a TV. You can specify what tablet you want to load for your different views. And then we've got, for our controller, you may have heard controllers are gone, but it's actually ES6. It's embedded right in your component. So you've got just your class, my component, or your name of it, and now we've got some TypeScript, and then your constructor. So this.name equals Alice, your name, if it's a string, will be Alice. And then you load it all up by saying bootstrap my app component, and that allows it to actually run and be embedded. But what about directives? Well, directives now look like this. They've got their own annotation. They've got a selector, which has this cool, new, funky syntax. There's no more return restrict with letters that sometimes correlate but sometimes don't, and you forget which ones go with which. If you have nothing in there, it's just an element. If you have brackets like this, that means it's an attribute. And if you have dot syntax, it's a class. Things were, I think, a little more easy to remember. And now, there's no more isolate scope. Oh, no more. We just have this properties tag where you actually put in what you want in your scope. But there is no more meaning of scope. That's just what you have as properties, which I'll go over a little later. Now, if you want interactivity, you've got host. So you say mouse click, run function show. Pretty simple. Everyone understands when you do a mouse over, you run show. I'll get into that parentheses syntax a little bit later. Then we've got another ES6 class called tooltip, where we've got a text and a console log in our show. So pretty simple. On mouse over, we'll run show. So this is all set and good? Not quite. We still have to now put it into our controller. Component. We have to load it into our component. So we've got this import tooltip from tooltips. This allows us to import that module into our component. You're going to be running a ton of these, so get prepared. But that allows us to actually specify everything we need. And then inside of our view, we have our directives, which we just do, it's a key and then a comma-separated list of all your directives that you're going to load in. So everything goes into it from an import tag and also gets loaded into directives. And then just the same, another ES6 class. So you've probably wondered and seen there is no scope here. We haven't used $scope. We've all used $scope. What is $scope? Where is it gone? It's gone away. There's no more $scope. It is now all of this, what we're all used to. Angular took it away, and then now it's bringing it back. Give them ticket. But there's also a lot of other things that are gone. We've killed off a whole bunch of other things. Yeah, no DDOs, yeah, no controllers, or JQ-Lite. We're getting rid of all of that. That simplifies things dramatically. Angular had tons of complexity, which now that we kind of know it, you might not remember, but it was hard to learn. There were so many different things. You probably had to do this. You really had to work to remember all the things that Angular could do. Now let's step and look towards properties. In Angular 2, properties look like this. You've got your bracket syntax, which we've already seen, and we're extending things that already exist. We're not creating our own wrappers like ng-source. We're just extending source and putting brackets around it that allows Angular to know what to do. Same with hidden. Hidden is an actual HTML5 element. Why were we using ng-hide? That was a wrapper for hide. We don't need that. We just need what HTML provides for us. Now, the difference between events and properties are in Angular 1, you had this. Now, what did that do? Was it calling user.name from the scope to then assign a value to the select the property based on a name parameter? Or is this a callback to that you want to be executed? You actually can't tell unless you look into the JavaScript and see what it's going to do. But in Angular 2, we've got events that look like this and properties that look like that. We've got parentheses and square syntax depending on what you want to accomplish, whether you want it to be an event or a property. So right in your HTML, you can see exactly what's going to go on without having to dive into the JavaScript. And this means there's no more ng-click, ng-blur, ng-change. For example, ng-click just looks like that. It is just click and do something. That's it. You don't need to have all these other things. Angular 2 actually got rid of like over 30 directives, just wiped out because they're all not needed anymore. We already have these features. Now, we all know services, right? Now, services provide a service, which can be a factory or a service. That may also be a provider or a constant or a value. Yeah, services are a pain in the ass. They're not easy to remember. You don't know which one you want to use for which. Why was this thought up? Well, now all that stuff is just that. It's an ES6 class. You don't need to do any fancy footwork. You just write a class with a constructor, and then you just import it in. All of it is now reduced and made a lot simpler. Angular 2 was also built for speed. Angular 1 was not built for mobile in mind back in 2009. They wanted just a good front-end framework. Now we have to think about mobile, we have to think about tablet, we have to think about all these different loading scenarios. And Angular 1's been kind of known to be a little slow if you're not an expert in it. Here's a graph that the baseline just be JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Now we've got Angular 2 with some different things that they've featured in, like a view cache, compared to Angular 1.3. Don't really know exactly what this means in the real world. I just know that they said this. It slopes down, which is good. And people are loving Angular 2 speed. They know what it does. They know that it's going to be fast. So now you're probably already looking at this and saying, well, how can I upgrade? How can I move on to Angular 2? Well, they actually have two different ways you can do this. There's the Big Bang approach, which is you say, I'm going to stop all my production on Angular 1, move all over to Angular 2. That's great for some companies. I'm sure like a startup can just like say, we're going to start with Angular 2. But not everyone's going to be able to do that. This is my more favorite approach. It's the por qué no los dos. Why can't we do both? Or as the Angular 2 team calls it, incremental upgrades. So this allows you to have Angular 1 code and Angular 2 code in the same file. You'll bring in both libraries, and you bring in something else called ng-upgrade. This is a library that is not yet out yet, but it will be. That'll allow you to run Angular 1 and Angular 2 and have like shims, and so you can run the same code and increment slowly over time. So are you all ready to upgrade? Are you all ready to go? I say no. So Angular 2 is in alpha stage, which there's breaking changes very often. Like, if you're going to be running production code, don't run it. You're just going to break things. Little things are changing are ruining code that's existing. So what does that mean? Well, we can do it, just not yet. You can explore it around. You can see what's good. You play around with the features. It's really interesting. I didn't cover like half of what's going on in Angular 2 because it's just so in-depth. But it's looking like it's going to be pretty powerful, built for the modern web, really allow us to explore faster opportunities and be a true like modern framework that uses ES6, uses TypeScript to save yourself a lot of trouble and errors. And it's going to be pretty cool. So if you're interested, here's some further reading. The top link is the actual Angular 2 source code, just angular.io. They created 2 websites for 1.x and 2 documentation. And here's some other great links. That's it. Anyone have any questions? Neri?
This might be like a little too specific, but like, I guess I don't understand the whole component and then view thing. Like I know you said that app view allows you to specify like a mobile or a team how are those two things connected? So is it like the app component, whatever view follows it is automatically associated with the component?
You put it in the same file.
Okay, cool.
You break down all your directives into a single file, or what we used to know as directives. So that's just saying that that selector is going to be called this. And then you have an app view, which says, these are the views I want. Just like you put in template URL, that's the same thing.
So does it have like a build process now? Angular like build this up together?
Well, there is TypeScript that will allow it to, like, you actually have to like compile down, but you can just run it with just regular JavaScript. So Angular just knows.
You have to do all those script source things.
I mean, you need to put like, that's what the import is for. So if you're bringing an outside source, you have to import them into there. And you have to like put in Angular too, but that's the only scripts you really need. Sure.
For the part where you showed about what would replace services and it was just a class,
Yep.
how does that get brought into the Angular app? 'Cause
You import.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about like views? Did they fix that where you don't have to use UI router and all that?
They have, I wasn't able to talk about this, but they've implemented a brand new router, it's called NG router, that's going to be released for 1.5 or 1.4 and for Angular 2. And it's supposed to be, everyone loves it. It's supposed to be able to, like, I think, remove the need for UI router, completely bring what Angular's router was meant to be, or like bring it to what can be useful. Any more questions? Good. Thank you, guys.